we'll start the discussion. Hello everyone, welcome to Lukmaan IAS. Today we are going to have the Hindu newspaper analysis dated 4th of December 2023. In today's newspaper analysis, we are going to cover a mapping topic and we are going to cover the important articles from the newspaper. We have identified the most important articles from the civil services point of view, so we are going to discuss them. So these are the list of articles that we are going to cover in today's newspaper analysis. So let us look at the first mapping topic. Alright, so today we are going to understand about the South China Sea. Why we are going to understand about South China Sea? Because this is one of the most disputed regions. This is one of the most disputed marine region in the world. So over here what happens, the shaded region that we can see here, the shaded region here, this shaded region in blue color, this showcases South China Sea. Although the South China Sea, this is, let's say, there are many countries that share maritime border with South China Sea. They include Malaysia, Indonesia, right? Indonesia is divided into 2 islands. Then Malaysia is also divided into it. Then we have Brunei, we have Philippines, right? We have Taiwan as well, right? So there are other countries also, for example, Vietnam. So many other countries are part of the South China Sea. However, the Chinese government asserts that entire South China Sea belongs to them, right? So they make a claim by saying that they had historical rights over South China Sea. So this thing was disputed earlier also. In 2016 there was a permanent court of arbitration. PCA has given a ruling in the year of 2016, and in that PCA ruling they have, let's say, held that South China Sea, right, belongs to many countries that are part of it, including China. It said that not only China should have the sovereignty over it, and this permanent court of arbitration has given a ruling, right, on the basis of customary international law and United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. In short, it is known as UNCLOS. So UNCLOS, or United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, is a law that, let's say, is a law that looks into the affairs related to maritime region, the sea, oceans and all. It talks about what is territorial jurisdiction, up to what nautical miles from the coastline of a country will be the territorial jurisdiction of the coastal state, and beyond which it talks about the contiguous zone, it talks about the exclusive economic zone, and it talks about the high seas, right? So in each of these regions there are differentiated let's say rights of the coastal states and other countries, right? So what rights are given, they are mentioned under the UNCLOS itself. So the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea has created many international bodies also under its part. These bodies regulate different affairs. One of the bodies is known as International Seabed Authority. In short, it is known as ISA. This International Seabed Authority talks about that in the high seas, right, high seas where there is no jurisdiction of the single states, right, so high sea belongs to all the countries and freedom of navigation is ensured in the high seas. So high sea does not belong to one single country or one single individual. It is a collective, let's say there is a collective ownership of all the countries over here. So in the high seas, if we go to the ocean bed, right, which is known as seabed, right, so seabed mining can be authorized by the International Seabed Authority, right? So in India also we have a mission which is known as Deep Ocean Mission. So as part of Deep Ocean Mission, the government of India or Ministry of, let's say Ministry of Earth Sciences is going to send a capsule, right, underwater, which is going to explore the seabed. Not only that, we also plan to exploit the polymetallic nodules from the seabed. Okay, so this is the thing. So we need to understand that this South China Sea, right, to assert its sovereignty, the Chinese government has created 9 dash line. What they have created? They have created 9 dash line. So basically 9 dash line is a kind of artificial islands that they have created in South China Sea to say that these islands belong to us and the nearby waters also come under the jurisdiction of the Chinese government. These islands include, for example, this Pratas Island, it includes many other islands over here. For example, Paracel Island, Spratly Islands, right? So many of these islands are part of it, right? So it is, let's say, Scarborough Shoal. It is also part of 9-dash line. So Chinese government has created 9-dash line. So what is 9-dash line? Simply 9-dash line is kind of like, this kind of line that joins these artificial islands, right? This is the thing. So South China Sea is a region where we see many other countries also part of it. Let us quickly understand about the disputed regions in the South China Sea. So what are the disputed claims or disputed regions in South China Sea? As we already discussed, that Philippines asserts its sovereignty, right, in a Scarborough Shoal. And recently Chinese government has also, let's say, sent its vessels. They have tried to make a fencing on the shoal, and today there was an article that talked about another kind of island which is surrounded by Chinese seas. So that's why South China Sea is in news. So let us quickly see some of these important islands, right? So when we talk about Vietnam over here, this is Vietnam, white colored country, shaded region. So Vietnamese claim that this region, up to this region, it belongs to Vietnam, right? According to international law, according to UNCLOS, because from the coastal region there will be territorial seas up to 12 nautical miles. There can be exclusive economic zones. Further 12 nautical miles means up to 24 nautical miles. So they say it belongs to us. However, Chinese say that this island, Paracel Island, belongs to China. Since this island belongs to China, from here the Chinese claim that, like, this will be our line. So there are competing claims of different countries in this region, okay? So they have competing claims on this region. So one of the island which is disputed is Paracel's Island. Then we have, this is Spratly Island. So Taiwan claims on it. However, China also claims on it. Then Scarborough Shoal, which is claimed by Philippines, but Chinese government says that this comes under the 9-dash line, so it belongs to us. Apart from this, we have Spratly Island. So Spratly Island is also highly contested region because it is claimed by Brunei, it is claimed by Malaysia, it is, let's say, like, claimed by Philippines as well. So Philippines in itself is divided into different islands over here. So it is divided into different island regions. So this is the thing. So it is very difficult for us to remember the name of each island over here because there are many islands, but those islands that remain in news, we need to identify their locations, okay? Generally, the islands that they may be asking, they may be part of South China Sea, okay? They will be asking questions in a broader sense, but you should be able to connect with it, okay? So this is how, let's say, like, it becomes important. South China Sea, remains in news for one or other purposes, mainly because of the dispute that arises between different member countries, right? Yes. Yes.
Sir, how does China claim the territory, the maritime zones near to Malaysia and Brunei?
Basically, Chinese government, as we earlier discussed, Chinese government has created some artificial islands, let's say here, here and here. Nearby, for example, one of the island is over here, right? Other island is, let's say, Spratly Island over here. Generally, for example, under the UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, let's say there is a country, I'll take the example of India. Let's say this is India, right? From the coastal region of India up to 12 nautical miles, there will be what? Exclusive, there will be territorial water. So India can claim sovereignty over it, right? India has some islands also, like if you talk about Andaman and Nicobar Island. So India will not see from the mainland, it will see the Andaman and Nicobar Island. Let's say this is here. So it will, instead of claiming from here, what India will do, India will have Andaman and Nicobar Island, and from here it will see 12 nautical miles in all directions. So India will claim this region to be like this. India will claim this region to be like this. So this way, it can claim. So what China is doing, although Chinese mainland is located over here, but China says that this Paracel Island belongs to us. Since Paracel Island belongs to us, so up to 12 nautical miles from Paracel Island, is the territorial water of Chinese. So they claim sovereignty up to this. Over here it says Spratly Island belongs to us, so like up to this it belongs to China, and over here anyhow it is part of China. They say this way, that Scarborough Shoal belongs to us up to 12 nautical miles, it should be Chinese. So the thing is, they claim this region to be theirs. Okay.
Even they claim Taiwan to be the part of
Right,
China.
part of China. One China policy they have. But similarly, like the UNCLOS is also very clear that if there are two countries, for example, we have Andaman and Nicobar Islands over here, but like there is another country over here. This is Sri Lanka. So in case there exists any other country, right? So in that case, even if it is not 24 nautical miles in all, right? So the middle water, like the middle region will be considered to be the line. This is considered to be the international borders, international maritime borders. So UNCLOS says if the distance is less, so half of this will be taken by each country. So that's how, means like India and Sri Lanka, I mean like we have sorted out our problems long back, but still some islands, I mean like that India has handed over to Sri Lanka. The Tamil Nadu government claims it, that it is part of it. I think Pamban Island is one of them. So that's the thing. So this is, let's say, the claim that is there. Apart from this, we are going to look into another topic. It says India, disability inclusion and the power of buy. So this is important. This article is related to, let's say, inclusion of people who have some form of disability. It can be physical disability, it can be mental disability. So in this article, we are going to talk about this, right? So name of the article is topic number 1. India, disability inclusion, India, disability inclusion and the power of buy, and the power of buy. So let us understand what this article talks about. Basically in this article the author says that so basically in this article the author says that globally around 1.3 billion people, how many? 1.3 billion people are affected by some sort of disability. Okay, they are affected by some form of disability. So this disability can be in various forms. Okay, this disability can be in various forms. It can be, let's say, mental disability, it can be physical disability also, it can be disability of any of these sorts. And since 1.3 billion people are affected, which is roughly equivalent to the population of India, roughly equivalent to population of India, means like in the world 1.3 billion people are affected by disability. I think we have 8.2 billion people in the world. Out of them 1.3 billion people are affected by disability, which is roughly equivalent to the population of India. So such a huge number of people are affected by disability. So India being one of the, let's say, like one of the most populous country in the world, India also has a significant proportion of disabled people in the country. So author says that out of this 1.3 billion people, right, out of this 1.3 billion people, 80% of them live in developing countries. Okay, live in developing countries, right? And out of these 80%, means like, let's say if we consider this 80% to be 100, out of this 70% of them live in rural areas, that's the thing. And now if we categorize those people who are affected by disability, if we categorize these people who are affected by these this thing, let's say like there is a person who is affected, so generally the services that are there, so these services must be like for these people, for the disabled people, right? Services for the disabled people means like there can be some kind of government initiative that is targeted to benefit the disabled people. So it should be 4. So the keyword 4 is important, means like these things should be for these people, means now if it should be for these peoples, now how it should be ensured. So author says there should be a distinction of for and by. Okay, there should be a distinction of for and by. What do we mean by this? The benefits should be for the disabled people, and it should be done in such a manner that it is done by them itself. I mean, like, there can be many government, government committees that is taking decision on for these people. So those committees should have representation from the disabled people also, so that the benefits are for these people and the benefits are by these people itself, like that. Okay, so that's how the this particular article says. This article also points out to many other things. The government of India already has some of the provisions for disabled people. So in this article the author says that greater challenges in rural areas, means in this article the author says that in the urban areas there are many buildings. Earlier government of India has taken a stance, which is Samagra Bharat Abhiyan, I think, there was a scheme. So that scheme is meant for making the government infrastructure or buildings disabled friendly, means making ramp in the government buildings, for example in hospitals, right? Ramp is something for it's a kind of staircase, but here wheelchairs can go easily. So ramp creation or like disabled friendly toilets, etc. So these things, the initiative has been taken by the government long back, and it has been implemented also, and it was done because of a guideline from the Supreme Court of India. And also apart from this, the government of India, let's say modified one of the law way back in 2016-17. That law was related to insurance schemes. What is that insurance scheme? That law simply said that if insurance providers are providing insurance for physical disability, for let's say for health related ailments, why they do not consider the mental disability, mental illness? I mean mental illness should also be given equal importance. So government of India has actually modified that as well. So in this article the author says that urban areas, right? So urban areas and rural areas must be, right? Rural areas must be treated differently. Why? Because in urban areas it is little bit easier for the disabled people to access for let's say commuting, means travel becomes little easy because accessibility is more. Most of the government buildings has been made accessible, but in rural areas there are more challenges for the people. Why? Because transport facilities in rural areas are not disabled friendly. This is one thing. The road infrastructure in the rural areas are not that good. So disabled people feel it more difficult to accessing some of the facilities for them. So in this article the author raises the demand for the disabled people, that the disabled people, there should be services for the disabled people, but it is far more important to include them, right, in decision making, so that for disabled people themselves take, let's say decisions, because they are better suited to understand the needs of their community. It's like that. So in this article the author talks about a project which is known as the Spark project. So the ILO and the International Fund for Agriculture Development, there are two organizations. One of the organization is International Labour Organization and other is International Fund for what? International Fund for Agriculture Development, IFAD, right? These things along with the Women's Development Corporation in Maharashtra are implementing the Sparkling Disability Inclusive Rural Transformation. So in this article they have talked about a project which is known as Spark project. Okay, Spark project. They are talking about a project which is a Spark project. So what is this Spark project is all about? This Spark project is named as Sparkling Disability Inclusive Rural Transformation project. Through this project, the persons with disabilities were put in the lead, being identified from the villages and trained as disability inclusion facilitators. So as part of this particular project, which is Spark project, so what they have done, they have identified people from rural areas. They have identified people from rural areas, and these people, right, are disabled people themselves, and they are treated as DIF. DIF means disability, disability inclusion facilitators, right? Disability inclusion facilitators. So what will be the role of these people? These people will identify the people who are disabled, or if disabled people come to them, so they will be identifying that these people are disabled, and they will be providing services to these people. So that's why in this article they give more focus to the word by, means like, you know, the identification of disabled people will be done by disability inclusion facilitators, right? And these disability inclusion facilitators are considered to be part of a Spark project. So this Spark project is initiated in the state of Maharashtra, and it is a collaboration between International Labour Organization plus International Fund for Agricultural Development and Women's Corporation of Maharashtra. So they are together working on this thing. So finally the author says the need to be more inclusive opportunities and employment in the rural areas, as a majority of persons with disabilities live here. So it is important that rural areas must be what? Must be strengthened. They should be made disabled friendly, and they say like it is going to be a benefiting thing for the disabled people in the rural areas. Okay, disability inclusion facilitators basically. So in this article they highlight this particular project, and this has been written by one of the country director from the International Fund for Agriculture Development, and also a person, a director, International Labour Organization, Decent Work and Technical Support. I mean, like, you know, they are based in New Delhi. So they have together written this article. Okay, so this is the thing. So with this we will quickly move to another article. This is on criminalizing, on recriminalizing basically adultery. This article is nicely written. So to understand this particular article, we need to understand what do we mean by adultery. We need to understand about adultery first, then we are going to understand about the, let's say, criminalization or decriminalization or recriminalization related to adultery. So let's say there is a married couple, okay, let's say there is a married couple. So this is the married couple. So when people marry, so they become part of institution of marriage, means like institution of marriage is given some kind of sanctity in Indian culture. So they become part of institution of marriage. So they are legally wedded people. So let's say one of them is male, other is female. Generally means like in institution of marriage there is a male partner, means who is the husband, and the wife female. If female, let's say, goes and have some kind of sexual relationship with a person who is not her husband, right, who is outside the marital relationship. So in that case, earlier in India, the marriage was considered to be a criminal offense, and who was considered guilty. So as part of the law, this outside person was considered guilty, right? He was considered guilty. Why? Because it was considered that he has seduced the wife of another person for having sexual relationship with him. So that's why as part of this particular person was considered a criminal, and he could be tried in a court of law. He could be tried in a court of law, and the maximum punishment can go up to 5 years of jail, right? Maximum punishment could be up to 5 years of jail. So this is, I am talking about before 2018, right, before Joseph Sain case. So this is the thing. So this person was considered to be guilty, and there was a provision in the Indian Penal Code, right? There was a provision in the Indian Penal Code that actually criminalized this particular person. So accordingly, this person was, let's say, like, you know, in conflict with the law. He could be sent in jail. But when it comes to these women, this, let's say, female partner in the marriage, right, this woman was not considered guilty. Why? Because of two notions. One of the thing is, like, the law in India gives sanctity to the institution of marriage, that we need to protect the institution of marriage. Second thing, the law considered the women to be a kind of property of the husband. It was like that, means, like, it is the property of the husband. So now this is the thing. However, the judiciary considered that it can be considered to be a ground for divorce. Okay, it can be considered for a ground for divorce. Ground for divorce means the husband can seek divorce in a court of law if in case his wife indulges into some adultery activity with another man who is not part of their thing. I mean, this is the thing. But this kind of law was considered to be, let's say, one-sided. Why it is considered to be one-sided? Because here the woman herself knows that she is married to a person and she is indulging in a kind of sexual relationship outside the marriage, right? She should also be treated that way. But the thing is, there was a Supreme Court judgment in 2018. Supreme Court in 2018, there was a case. It is known as Joseph Shine case, right? Joseph Shine case. Who is Joseph Shine? Basically, she is a person from Kerala. Okay, she is a person from Kerala, a lady. She was a non-resident Indian, NRI, and she has filed a case in a court of law. She has challenged the, let's say, validity of that particular section of the IPC, right? That section of the IPC that criminalizes this person guilty of this thing, right? She criminalizes. And at that point of time, there was a constitutional bench created by the Supreme Court of India. There, I mean, that was headed by Justice Deepak Mishra, was the chairman, was the CJI that time. Then, apart from this, Justice A.M. Khanwilkar, then there was Justice D.Y. Chandrachud. So many, let's say, topmost judges of the Supreme Court of India, they sat together. They have, what they have done, they have decriminalized this thing, that adultery is decriminalized. They said that, this particular person cannot be considered to be guilty because each and every judge had a different opinion. So one of the judge, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, what he has said, he said that, indulging in sexual activity willingly is a kind of personal and private activity of a person. So if a state enters into it, right, means, like, if this woman is indulging into sexual activity outside her marriage, what will happen? This woman is actually, I mean, she knows about the sanctity of marriage, she is doing this thing. State should not enter into it because she is not doing anything wrong against the society. She might be doing wrong against her husband, and the husband can seek maintenance in terms of, let's say, husband can ask for a divorce, husband can ask for some kind of, let's say, remedy, right, separation from the marriage. So husband always have a right. So that's why, I mean, there were many judges, they have given let's say, varying judgments related to it. So basically they said that the state should not enter into the personal sphere of it, and that's why they have thought of decriminalizing it. However, what has happened earlier, right, there were many commissions that were set up by the government. One of the commission is Law Commission of India report. So Law Commission of India in 42nd report deliberated on the benefits of criminalizing adulterous conduct. Okay, so Law Commission of India said that it should be criminalized.
Yes, sir.
And also there was Justice Malimath Committee report in 2003. So Justice Malimath Committee has said that, we can criminalize this particular activity, which is adultery, but the thing is, it can be criminalized by making it gender neutral. Gender neutral means only this particular person should not be treated as, let's say, person of guilty. Even this female must be treated as guilty. So both of them should be treated, let's say, at par, or otherwise you take out this particular thing, because the current morale of the society, the current constitutional morality does not allow, let's say only a single person to be considered, let's say, culpable or should be considered as liable or for this kind of thing.
Sir, one thing. Sir, what about other way around? If like a husband has done something like of adultery nature, then what is going to happen to him?
As of now, after the decriminalization, that particular husband will not be considered to be guilty. Means, let's say other way around, this is the thing. In this marriage, this husband actually goes and, let's say, has any kind of sexual activity with outside women. So the thing is this, I mean, if she is unmarried, right, so this person will not be considered to be guilty. If she is married, right, so the thing is this person can be considered as guilty because she is married to another person. That was the case. Huh?
Somehow married woman is safe
Huh.
from all these pairs.
That's why it was decriminalized. But recently what has happened, the government of India has come up with 3 bills. These are criminal bills to replace the Indian Penal Code, Criminal Procedure Code and Indian Evidence Act. They have come up with Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, Bharatiya Sakshya. So basically, recently one of the parliamentary standing committee, they have said that we need to criminalize it. We need to criminalize adultery. Why we need to criminalize adultery? We need to criminalize adultery because of 2 reasons. One reason is we need to protect the institution of marriage in Indian society. So in Indian society, the institution of marriage needs to be protected. Second thing is that they said, like, if we want to criminalize it, we are going to make it gender neutral. The way that Justice Malimat Committee has recommended earlier. Justice Malimat Committee has recommended that like, you know, it should be criminalized, but it should be criminalized by making gender neutral. I am going to read it, what the Justice Malimat Committee has said earlier. Okay, so I have noted down somewhere Justice Malimat Committee reform. So Committee on Reforms of Criminal Justice System, known as Malimat Committee, proposed in its report that adultery be retained an offence but on gender neutral terms. It observed that the object of section is to preserve the sanctity of marriage. So Justice Malimat Committee said, like, it is important that we preserve the sanctity of marriage. Society abhors marital infidelity. Therefore, there is no reason for not meting out similar treatment to the wife who has sexual intercourse with a man. Means, like, they said that it can be retained as a criminal offence, but it on gender neutral terms. Means women can be made liable, man can also be made liable as part of it. Huh?
Other than the husband.
But as of now, what is the case? Means, like, not as of now, earlier before Joseph Sain case, only man was considered guilty. And why they did it so? Because they wanted to protect the women. Means women were considered to be a weaker sex. I mean, like, you know, like that. So they considered it to be a very patriarchal society. So that's why they have taken it that way. Then we have another article.
I don't understand one thing. Not from this article, like from the opinion given by the current Chief Justice in that Joseph Sain case, that it is not a matter of societal affair, it is a personal affair kind of thing. And so somehow we like attach the sanctity of a marriage to the sacrosanct because society has done that. Like society consider marriage to be sacrosanct, that's why we are considered to be institution of marriage, right? So sir, how the conduct of a person in his personal life, don't you think it will going to affect the societal aspects also?
It's going to affect the societal aspects largely, but the thing is, this society is not, I mean, like, you know, it is not something which is going to affect the society largely. I mean, like, society may have a say in this, that this is wrong, that is wrong. But the thing is, like, you know, so Justice D.Y. Chandrachud basically, let's say, like, he's a person who was educated in India, who educated in UK, right? So he has more liberal opinion, basically. He has more liberal opinion. So he considers that the personal choices of person, right? So it should be given precedence, it should be given importance.
So basically, he like establish the individual at the center,
right,
and the society at the
periphery. Yes, that's that way. So then we have another article. article, it says 135 Chinese boats spotted near reef of Philippines. So we have today discussed about the South China Sea. So what happens in South China Sea? The Chinese government asserts their sovereignty. So they have, let's say, sent some of the boats, right, near one of the, let's say, reef, right? Reef means artificial islands, we can consider, near one of, or island, right? So near one of the reef near to Philippines. So that's why Philippines Coast Guard. So they were alarmed, means like huge number of these things, boats are coming, right? So they were alarmed. So that's why in this article they have mentioned that there were swarming of, let's say, like, you know, by boats, Chinese boats near some of the islands of Philippines. So they were alarmed that, like, you know, whether Chinese are going to wage an attack on Philippines, or like, you know, they are going to capture the reef or all. So that's why this article came. Basically, like, in this article they have not mentioned much. Okay, so they have just mentioned about names of these reefs. In your free time you can note down these names. One of the reef is known as White Sun Reef. Okay, this is White Sun Reef. This is one reef, and they have mentioned multiple reefs in this article, right? One of this reef, then multiple reefs are mentioned. Julian Philippe Reef. Okay, yeah, this is another reef that they have mentioned. Julian, Julian Philippe Reef. Okay, they have mentioned these reefs. So you just can remember name of these reefs. They are located near to Philippines. That's the thing, for mapping purposes. And this raises the concern related to South China Sea, the issue that we have discussed in the mapping. So South China Sea is a disputed region.
So okay. Why it is so much contested region in the South China? Like, what is so special about the South China Sea? What is the economic significance of it?
See, almost most of the maritime ships pass through it. Cargo ships, maritime ships pass through it. So, like, you know, the businesses of different countries can get hampered if only Chinese have the sovereignty on it. So all the countries in the world, like, who are not part of that region, so they are in support of freedom of navigation through the South China Sea also, right? But this is being contested because, like, you know, the rights of Philippines, rights of this Brunei or Malaysia, so their rights are also there. So it is a contested region between them also, and it is something that can hamper other countries as well. Other countries are in support of freedom of navigation, and they are in support that only Chinese should not be having the sovereignty in this region. If Chinese have the sovereignty, they will not allow the boats to pass freely through it. This is the thing. So that's why it assumes economic significance. Okay. And greater territory a country has, so, like, you know, the country is, let's say, greater in terms of geographical significance. That's the thing. So we have another article. This is a very short article. In this article they have talked about Indonesia's Malapi volcano. Okay, Indonesia's Malapi volcano erupts, sweeping ash 3000 meters into the air. 3000 meter, you understand? Means, like, it is like, this is a 3-floor building, so the maximum height can be up to 15 meters. 3000 meters means, like, you know, I don't know, 200 times of this building. It's like that. Yeah. So ash went 3000 meters above. So it is kind of, this Marapi volcano is a active volcano, right? Marapi volcano is a active volcano. So any volcano that erupts within a span of 100 years, last 100 years, that is considered to be an active volcano. And those volcanoes that has not erupted in the last 100 years, they are considered to be dormant volcanoes, right? So volcanoes are generally located around, right? Around what? So there is a line.
Pacific Ring of Fire.
Yes, Pacific Ring of Fire. Okay, there is a line which is known as Pacific Ring of Fire. What is this Pacific Ring of Fire? Basically, along this ring, huge number of active volcanoes are lying, and not only huge number, so Pacific Ring of Fire looks like something like this. Huge number of active volcanoes are lying, and lot of seismic activity also happens. Why? Because the continental margins of different continents and oceans are lying across the Pacific Ring of Fire. So we know continental drift theory. So as part of this continental drift theory, or let's say plate tectonic theory, so the continental plates and oceanic plates, they are moving. So either they are moving towards one another, that leads to convergent plate boundary. If they move towards one another, there can be seismic activities, there can be volcanic activities also. Then there can be, let's say, those plate boundaries, plate margins where they are moving away from one another, that is known as divergent plate boundaries. There also, let's say, volcanic activities may arise, because if they are going away from one another, the magma from within, right, from the mantle of the earth, it may emerge, it may come out, right. So divergent plate boundaries are there, and also there are transform plate boundaries. In transform plate boundaries, what happens? The plates are moving slight past one another, they are moving parallel to one another. So that also leads to some kind of seismic activities, because like they are not totally parallel to one another. So if they are moving, so there can be, let's say, seismic activities. So basically in Pacific Ring of Fire, many, let's say, like there is a Pacific plate, there will be like European plate, Asian plate to the north of it. So these plates are moving relative to one another, that leads to kind of volcanic activities in this region. So what you need to understand after this discussion, you need to read about what? The Pacific Ring of Fire, you need to read about active and passive volcanoes, you need to read about the continental drift theory and plate tectonic theory. You need to read about the major plates and the minor plates. So generally it is a kind of precursor to your reading for physical geography, okay, or geomorphology simply. So with this, we will move to another article. This is just a short article, I mean, like, no, not much is given in this article. Basically in this article they mention about population level genome sequencing. So we need to understand what are genomes, right? As we all know, the gene is something that carries, right, that is made up of DNA. It carries the genetic information of an individual. For example, if someone does genetic study of my genes, right, so he will be understanding about the, let's say, like, my genetic information, he'll be having this thing. And the study of all the genes of a particular species is known as genome. I mean, like, all the genes of a species, if they are put together, right, they are known as genome. So if genomes are available of an individual, if it is available of a group of population, so they will be able to sequence it. Sequence means they will be able to know how the base pairs are connected. Means like in case of DNA, we know, right, we know DNA, RNA, etc. In case of DNA, there are ATGC base pairs. What is ATGC base pairs? It is adenine, right, then guanine, cytosine, and this is another base, right, I think thymine, okay. Then in RNA we have AUGC base pairs, right. So these are base pairs, but like they only in DNA we find ATGC in different kind of sequences. So if someone does genome sequencing, he essentially understands how the genes are coded, right, in that individual. And if there is population level genome sequencing, so they get to map the genome of an entire population. So there are different projects across the world. One of the project is Human Genome Project. So under which, like, they want to they did a study of the human genomes. They have captured genome samples from across the world, from Asia, from Africa, from USA, from other countries. So that was one of the project that has, let's say, like, completed, that has been completed. And in India also, Indian government has initiated a project which is known as IndiGen, right, Indian Genome Project. So under IndiGen, what they want to do, they want to collect genome samples of population of India from across India, means like from North India, from South India, from coastal regions, from northeastern regions, and they want to make a map of it, genome mapping, so that if a population in a particular region is affected by some sort of disease, there can be specialized treatment for it. And why genome sequencing is being done? Genome sequencing helps the scientist, helps the researchers to identify the kind of disease that happens and help them to, let's say, come up with diagnostic methods. The genome sequencing may help the scientists to create, let's say, diagnostic methods, to create, let's say, vaccines or some kind of medical treatment for rare diseases, for those diseases that are not known as of now. And also it will help the scientists to come up with precision, let's say, like, precision medicine. For example, like an individual has some kind of problem, related to his problem there can be medicines created. So that is known as precision medicine. So there are many countries across the world that have initiated their own genome project. Globally there was a human genome project that has already completed, and Indian government has also come up with the project which is known as IndiGen. And in this article they talk about another kind of genome initiative which is known as Decode. Okay, so what is Decode? So they have Iceland, they have initiated a Decode genomics in 1996. What they have done, they have collected genome sample of most of the Icelandic population, right? And these Icelandic population, they have themselves, let's say, enrolled voluntarily to give their genome samples. So genome sample studies have been done of people of Iceland. So Iceland, Norway, Denmark, these are some of the countries that are located in the Nordic region. So they are small in size, but at the same time these regions are, let's say, most developed in certain sense, and they have, let's say, like, most in terms of human development index, so they are very ahead as compared to India or many other countries. So in this article they say that, like, not only governments of different countries have initiated the let's say, like, genome level sequencing, but the thing is, like, different private entities also, private research entities have also initiated such project. So they include like Regeneron Genetic Center, AstraZeneca, Novo Nordisk, Roche, along with this McCarry Medical College, Tennessee. They plan to sequence 5 lakh individuals of African ancestry through Diversity Human Genome Initiative. Means many organizations came together, they want to collect the genome samples of African population, and they have given name to that project. It is known as Diversity Human Genome Initiative. So genome actually is complete set of genes in an organization, right? So it helps to identify the entire, let's say, like, entire organism. So generally we are multicellular organism, we have different cells in the body. There are muscle cells, hair cells, like, let's say, cells in the blood cells, cells in the bones. So, like, different kind of cells will be studied together, so that creates genome. And if genome samples are collected for a population, they will be able to sequence them, and sequencing will help them to study it in deeper sense. And if they study more, if they do research in this area, so they will be able to come up with treatment plans, diagnostic methods, right, of identifying some of the rare genetic diseases. And treatment plans will help the, let's say, like, health industry to prosper. Not only health industry, it is going to benefit the humanity at large. So this is the thing. So at large we have a topic, this is a very short topic. This topic says highest cases of sexual violence make Delhi most unsafe for women. So this is, I mean, like, a kind of distressing picture for Delhi. So recently NCRB has released a report. NCRB stands for National Crime Records Bureau, right? National Crime Records Bureau comes under the Ministry of Home Affairs, right? It comes under Ministry of Home Affairs. So this Ministry of Home Affairs basically, right, collects data, crime data from across the country, from different states, from different union territories. And as part of this particular report, they have, let's say, like, data of different types of crimes. For example, crimes against women, crimes against children, crimes related to murder, crimes related to, let's say, like, forgery, crimes related to other things. So these different crimes are clubbed together to give a comprehensive report. And in that report, they have mentioned that highest number of sexual cases, violence, happen in Delhi. So every day at least 3 cases of rapes are registered in Delhi. So according to this, it says city registered maximum number of crimes against women among 19 metropolitan cities for third consecutive year. At least 3 cases of rapes registered every day. Okay, it is according to the NCRB data. So NCRB data, they talk about the Crime in India report. Name of the report is Crime in India report. It is important. Okay, you need to remember the name of the report. It is known as Crime in India report. Crime in India report. This report is released by Ministry of Home Affairs and it is released by National Crime Records Bureau. Okay, so it's this National Crime Records Bureau, its office is in Delhi itself. If you go to this, I mean this airport, Indira Gandhi International Airport, right, by road, so it will come on the way. I have seen this office from outside. So this is the thing. So basically it says crimes against women, crimes against children, kidnapping and abduction, crimes against elderly, murder, cyber crimes. Okay, so they have talked about crimes in different years, 2020, 21, 22. Okay, 20 talks about the blue colored, 21 black and 22 red. Okay, crimes against women has been increasing consistently. Okay, so this is the thing. So basically from here, what is important for us to understand, the name of the report, you need to remember. This report is released by NCRB, National Crime Records Bureau, and it is released under Ministry of Home Affairs. And it is also important for us to remember that not all crimes are recorded. Most of the crimes are not reported also. Only few of the crimes that are reported and actually recorded, they become part of it. So the thing is, the actual incidence of crime may be much higher than what is reported in this report. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you so much everyone for attending today's session. I hope you have a good day ahead. Thank you.